I think Zelensky's the greatest salesman in history.
Great TV, as the president said. Yeah.
I think we've seen enough. What do you think? Huh? This is going to be great television, I will say that. Every time he comes into the country, he walks away with $60 billion. Billion!
Здрасте.
Василий Петрович Голобородько?
Да.
Доброе утро, господин президент.
My name is Volodymyr Zelensky, and I was born in a small Ukrainian town on January 1978. I was the kid who could make even the grumpiest babushka crack a smile.
It had the feelings at times, Dana, of an ambush. Vladimir Putin's work was being done for him.
Planned ambush designed to embarrass President Zelensky in order to benefit Vladimir Putin.
This was a setup for the cameras to try to humiliate Zelensky.
There you heard media and Democratic leaders continuing and repeatedly calling Friday's blow-up at the White House an ambush of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
Not this babushka.
By President Trump and Vice President Vance.
It's funny, so we have a 45-minute press conference, and the president normally does this. I mean, I've seen this now 3 or 4 times with foreign leaders where he likes to bring the media in, likes to have a conversation, but answer questions with the press. As you know, he's very open with reporters.
Recently, on the 28th of February, we saw one of the most extraordinary things I think we've ever seen in American diplomatic history. Mr. Zelensky was in the White House, and they were there arranged in front of the White House fireplace for a photo op. The Vice President, J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, the President, Mr. Zelensky. And as they started to talk, it became heated.
Legend has it my first word was sketch. No mama or papa for me, just straight to the comedy grind. By age 5, I was scribbling routines about potatoes and Soviet bureaucracy, which, trust me, was funnier than it sounds when you're dodging lines for bread. I was a natural showman. Give me a stage, a spotlight and a bowl of borscht, and I'd have the whole village in stitches. Growing up, I became Ukraine's most beloved comedian. No big deal, just a fact. In 2019, life decided to imitate art. I ran for president of Ukraine armed with nothing but charisma, a decent haircut, and a stockpile of one-liners, and boom! I won. Turns out a good joke can outmaneuver a crusty politician any day. Who knew?
What I noticed is that for the first 25, 30 or so minutes, he tried to sort of bend over backwards to be gracious and kind to Zelensky. Even when Zelensky was kind of needling him, even when Zelensky was saying things that I thought were untrue, the president just tried to be diplomatic, right? I think that's his natural instinct in that situation.
It was kind of tragic. I think Mr. Zelensky in some ways is a sympathetic character. He needs American weapons, but he kept arguing and interrupting the President of the United States, who kept trying to remind him that without American weapons, and the number is disputed because it includes weaponry, economic assistance, and other types of U.S. aid, and it's somewhere between 180 billion, or as Trump feels, 300 billion.
President Trump, what's your message to Vladimir Putin, sir? President Trump, do you have a message for Vladimir Putin?
Most news programs you're going to listen to have neither the time nor the desire to walk their audiences through the critical moments that happened before the viral showdown. This thing lasted 49 minutes. President Trump started the meeting complimenting President Zelensky and the Ukrainian soldiers.
Your soldiers have been unbelievably brave. We've given them great equipment, but somebody has to use the equipment. They've been unbelievably brave. I give tremendous credit to your generals and your soldiers and yourself.
He told Mr. Zelensky it was an honor to have him in the Oval Office. Trump's doing the right thing there. He's glad-handing. He's paying him compliments. Mr. Zelensky, in return, thanked President Trump for the invitation and said he hoped the minerals deal would be the first step to real security guarantees.
Help Europe, because Europe really helped. They really gave a lot, Mr. President. They did.
They gave a lot, but they gave much less.
No.
Much less.
No. No.
Don't argue.
No.
Okay.
He then took out a series of photos to show President Trump. They pictured Ukrainian prisoners of war held in Russian captivity. It was Mr. Zelensky's way of saying to President Trump, this is who you are dealing with. President Trump looked at the photos, expressed sympathy, and said that's why we need this war to end.
So I'm in the Oval Office, everything's smooth, ready to seal the deal with Trump or not. When this know-it-all Vance guy with his oiled beard flips my whole script.
And then when it really went off the rails, of course, is when I asked, or you had a Polish journalist who asked a question, the president answered it, and then I answered it.
I'm talking with my friends in Poland, and they are worried that you align yourself too much with Putin. What's your message for them?
Well, if I didn't align myself with both of them, you'd never have a deal. You want me to say really terrible things about Putin and then say, "Hi, Vladimir, how are we doing on the deal?" That doesn't work that way. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred. I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either.
And then something about my answer just really set Zelensky off. So then he came at me.
So you're blaming yourself.
And then I went back at him.
Right.
And what I tried to do originally was actually try to diffuse the situation a little bit.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
Well, when you do watch the entire exchange, you do see that Donald Trump in particular was uncharacteristically patient and diplomatic, as Zelensky just was dismissive, would make comments, would roll his eyes.
So they all claim this deal was secure, a finished pact just waiting for ink. But if that's true, why did it collapse so swiftly? Was it genuinely set, or are these divided voices, some shielding me, others blaming me, masking a deeper uncertainty? What's the real foundation beneath their confident words?
These kinds of discussions over the generations of leaders, whether it's as far back as the First World War, have always occurred. The difference here is no one's ever seen sausage being made.
Понимаешь, теперь они заставляют детей в будки ваши строить. Знаешь, почему у нас жизнь собачья? Да потому что мы свой выбор с тобой начинаем в будках. Понятно? А выбирать-то не из кого. Из двух пи***цев выбираем меньше.
This is a very transparent administration. Trump has just been very open. And you saw for the first time in modern times what really goes on behind closed doors. Now, you may not like it, but that is nothing new.
The way he handled the meeting, the way he confronted the president, was just over the top.
He also just totally mistook the year. I mean, the year is 2025. I think that he still thinks the year is 2022 and that Joe Biden is still in charge because, again, he has made his bed with the Democrats. He did that whole campaign stomp with Kamala Harris there. He's just completely unwilling to read the room and to see the tea leaves and recognize what they are.
What I saw in the Oval Office was disrespectful, and I don't know if we can ever do business with Zelensky again.
If you're a man of principles,
yes,
why are you working for a man who the anti-corruption authorities say has stolen all this money from the people of this country?
Feelings towards Zelensky have changed also dramatically. Look at this. Confident Zelensky will do the right thing when it comes to world affairs. Back in 2022, it was the clear majority, 72%.
Not true. This is bullshit propaganda from this conservative media channel.
Through the floor. Through the floor by 2024, just 48%.
Все каналы у нас принадлежат олигархам. Все крупные предприятия принадлежат этим группам. Получается, что мы все люди в Украине, 40 миллионов людей без принципов, мы все работаем на этих предприятиях.
Across social media, a storm of voices rages. Some fiercely argue I yanked the rug out from under Secretary Marco Rubio with a last-minute bait-and-switch on the mineral deal, leaving him blindsided and humiliated before Trump.
He said, sure, we want to do this deal.
While others quietly speculate it was all a calculated move.
It makes all the sense in the world. The only thing is I need to run it through my legislative process. They have to approve it. I read 2 days later that Zelensky's out there saying, I rejected the deal. I told him no way that we're not doing that. Well, that's not what happened in that meeting. So you start to get upset by somebody. We're trying to help these guys. President Trump's not the kind of person that's going to sit there and take that. He's very transparent. He's going to tell you exactly how he feels. And he sent a message that he's not going to get gamed here.
Trump was kind of the good cop, and Vance was kind of the bad cop. And Vance kept saying to him, you don't have the destiny in Ukraine. And what he was trying to say is, Mr. Zelensky, we're not the Biden administration, and our system of government policy changes. You essentially got a blank check from Mr. Biden, who didn't intervene. That's not going to happen now. We have $36 trillion in debt. Whether it's tragic or not, he's in a subordinate position. Without the United States, he would be nowhere. Europe talks a great game, but all of Europe together, all 28, 29 nations of the EU, 32 nations of NATO have given less than the United States alone.
Not too long ago, America would talk about going to war for the idea of democracy and freedom. And now our allies, like the United Kingdom, will lock people up for tweets. Or even worse, Trump and Vance will put Zelensky in his place, which needed to be done. And then our allies will invite him over the next day and hug him and shake hands and promise him money.
How do you feel about that?
Well, what I feel like is that they're not even our allies anymore. That's snakery.
Welcome to President Zelensky, Vladimir. You heard, I think, last night, we're all with you, people of Ukraine, for as long as it takes, and everyone around this table.
You insult, if my brother puts you in your place and I come up behind his back and offer you money, am I my brother's brother? Is that how it works?
No. Nope. So why'd I bolt straight to my European brothers after Trump kicked me out of the White House? Was it a calculated move or just me running from the wreckage?
Here's the problem with the Europeans. And a lot of these guys are our friends, they're our allies. We, of course, the president has a great relationship with a lot of European heads of state, and so do I, but they need to be realistic. Mm-hmm. And the craziest part about this, Sean, is that sometimes you'll have European heads of state who in public will puff up their chest and say, we're in it with President Zelensky for the next 10 years. And then in private, they'll pick up the phone and say, this can't go on forever. He has to come to the negotiating table. So I honestly don't care what the Europeans say in public. What I care is what they say in private, and what they need to be saying to President Zelensky is, this can't go on forever. The bloodshed, the killing, the economic devastation, it's making everyone worse off. The only pathway, I think, back to peace and prosperity is what the president is trying to accomplish.
The relationship between the Trump administration, specifically President Donald Trump, and Vice President J.D. Vance and European leaders has significantly worsened. Tensions peaked after Vance's Munich Security Conference speech, the contentious Zelensky meeting, and Trump's subsequent withdrawal of military support for Ukraine. Vance's February 14th speech in Munich criticized European leaders for stifling free speech and democracy, accusing them of censoring conservative voices and prioritizing migration over security. This provoked sharp rebukes, notably from German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius, who called the remarks unacceptable and left European leaders questioning U.S. reliability. The rift deepened on February 28th when Trump and Vance clashed with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in the Oval Office, berating him for ingratitude and pressuring him to accept a peace deal, a confrontation labeled a manufactured escalation by Germany's incoming Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Trump's March 3rd decision to pause all U.S. military aid to Ukraine, interpreted as a retreat from European security commitments, further alarmed leaders, prompting an emergency summit in London on March 2nd, hosted by British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Attended by Zelensky, Macron, and others, the summit reaffirmed European support for Ukraine and explored a coalition of the willing to offset U.S. withdrawal, with Merz and outgoing Chancellor Olaf Scholz vocally backing Kiev.
The only reason that he was able to create a standoff, a tie, some kind of impasse with this enormous Russian juggernaut was due to the bravery of the Ukrainian soldiers, but also United States weapons, but also the United States nuclear deterrent. Every time that a general or a media personality in Russia threatened to use nuclear weapons, the United States politely, through diplomatic channels, said, don't do this. don't do this. And we have nuclear superiority over Russia.
I tried again to say, well, maybe we should have this conversation in private. And the president was like, nope, actually, I don't want to have it in private anymore. I want to have this actual conversation in public for the American people to see.
All right. We'll see what we can do about putting it together. Thank you.
Guys, let's go. Guys, come on, let's go.
The Russians are going to have to give up stuff. The Ukrainians are going to have to give up stuff. You can't come to the Oval Office and say, give us security guarantees. We won't even engage with you about what we're willing to give up. That's been the Ukrainian posture. When that posture changes, as President Trump said, when they're willing to talk peace, I think President Trump will be the first person to pick up the phone.
If you go back to the Ohio Senate primary back in 2022, when J.D. Vance beat out Josh Mandel and the various others there, he ran on this exact platform. Ukraine was actually a major issue for J.D. Vance.
I don't think Mr. Zelensky realizes that whether it's fair or not, he has sided with the American left. He feels that the left wing in Europe and the left wing in the United States are his sponsors. He flew into the swing state of Pennsylvania right at the heat of the September campaigning season in 2024.
I see Zelensky is here. I think Zelensky's the greatest salesman in history.
I visited the Scranton Army ammunition plant in Scranton, Pennsylvania during the U.S. presidential election season. During this visit, I thanked workers for producing artillery shells vital to Ukraine's war effort against Russia.
He went to iconic Scranton on the invitation of Joe Biden, who was trying to help Kamala Harris. He was flown in on a U.S. military jet. He met Democratic politicians.
Among those who accompanied Zelensky to the plant were Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and Senator Bob Casey.
No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
During his visit to the state, in a post saying, Scranton, Pennsylvania, I visited a plant that manufactures 155mm artillery shells.
He met union workers in a munitions factory and basically said to them, these jobs are essential to us. Subtext, you wouldn't want to lose your jobs by voting for Donald Trump, who might cut off aid. That was a terrible mistake.
Every time he comes into the country, he walks away with $60 billion. Billion!
The bottom line was this was a very strange, bizarre, open diplomatic spat. At one point, Donald Trump said this was good for the American people to see. And I think what he was saying is, I'm in a very strange position where a subordinate nation is engaged in a war with a nuclear power, and we are its patron and supplying it, and we are taking the risk of an escalation to DEFCON, who knows what, 3? And he doesn't seem to get that. He just talks about his needs, and I need to apprise him before the American people of our needs.
Уважаемые журналисты, я прошу прощения, я не готов к этой пресс-конференции.
Did you sign the minerals deal? Why were you so disrespectful to the president?
In closing, the odds of Zelensky and Trump restarting talks soon hang in the balance, teetering on necessity and tension. Their February 28th, 2025 showdown and Trump's March 3rd aid freeze fractured their rapport, but Ukraine's survival hinges on U.S. backing, and Trump craves a quick resolution to cement his legacy. European pressure, led by Germany's Merz after the March 2nd London summit, might help, though lingering distrust and Vance's rhetoric complicate prospects. We all hope that this war will end soon, bringing relief and stability to a fractured global order.